One of the most important ways you can prepare yourself and your family for the days to come is to have available to you the information you're going to need right when you need it. So, stay with us in the next few minutes and we're going to talk just a little bit about what that might look like. For each of us, it's going to look just a little bit different, but bear with me as I talk us through in a moment the list of things that we need to be considering to compile for our families. But first I want to talk to you about what you might compile them and put them in. And I don't want you to spend any money. If anything, just run to the dollar store or something, but I'll bet on hand at home you already have something that will work. Here are just a few examples. We've got 3-ring binders. This is perfect. If it has a couple of pockets in the front and back, that's ideal. About a 1.5 inch should do it, but you can even get them up to 3 and 6 inches if you needed to. That would just be a little difficult to throw in a bug out bag and take with you if you needed to. But a 3-ring binder is a fantastic option. Also, if you have a large family and you needed to carry something, as long as it has a handle and you could just grab it and go, something like this accordion file is perfect. There are other options too though. I love this little one over here. This almost looks like a purse, or a satchel, but in actuality, if you open it, it's also an accordion file. And you could have one for each member of the family or whatever it is that you need to do for your system to work. Just make sure you don't go out and spend a bunch of money. Just find something that is there in your house, and I would recommend it be something that's rather nondescript looking. I wouldn't label it right big across the front saying something like all of our family's most important documents, but you do want everyone in the family to know where it's stored and how to identify it. So it might be blue where all the other ones are black or something like that on your shelf. Just make sure it's nondescript, but at a finger's tip you could grab it, and anyone in your family could if it was needed in an emergency. Okay, now let's talk through a short list of some of the options that you might need to consider. And before I get into that, let me say if you hop on over after you've watched this video, hop on over to PREPSTEADERS.com and we'll make sure to have a PDF file there that you can download that has a longer, more extensive list of options that you might need to consider for your family to compile and put in this binder to have with you or available to grab up in the event of an emergency in the future. So let's talk through just a few of them. I've made little notes here, so bear with me, but let's start with birth certificates. You don't want the actual version, but you do want a facsimile of it, anyone's birth certificate, as well as important death certificates and social security cards. If you've got those for everyone in your family, that's ideal. I wouldn't put the originals in here. I'd put those somewhere else that's safe, but have a version of them in here by carbon copy. Nextly, immunization records, your medical records, any kind of pharmaceutical prescriptions. And prescriptions kind of change, as you know, so especially if you're someone who might be older that has prescriptions that change, you want to revisit this about every 6 months and make sure you've got only the most updated prescriptions noted and a carbon copy of them in this folder file that you can have with you. If you weren't able to speak, just imagine the scenario and someone else needed your important information. This would be invaluable to possibly save your life for them to flip through it and see exactly which medications you are needing right in that moment. Okay, also diplomas. This is an easy one. Anyone who in your family who's graduated from a school or college, go ahead and throw them in there. A carbon copy of your marriage certificate and your divorce certificates. Those can be very important, and even though this is a photocopy, it may not stand up in a court of law, but it would at least allow a lawyer or attorney to be able to find your documents wherever the real ones are if they had a photocopy of them from in here. Insurance papers, whether it's for your home, your car, any kind of asset that you have. If you have insurance on it, I would make sure that you have a copy of your insurance cards, preferably the ones that are updated and most current, right here in this file. Mortgage papers. Any kind of mortgage you have on your home or secondary investment properties or your car loans, all of those you want to make sure you have a copy in here on. All right, your vehicle title, deeds to the properties that you own outright, anything that you have like that, make sure you have a copy in here. Your resume. It's a wealth of information. Not only is it going to tell where you went to school and graduated from, but wherever you've ever been employed before and your current employment. Passports and retirement documents. Some of you rely so heavy on those retirement documents for your income. Make sure you have them documented in here. Boy, I just heard a horror story this week of someone who had to go and prove their retirement income because the person in charge of it, once they were put in the nursing home, the person in charge of it kind of made off with the documents and the money for about 3 months before the government caught up with them. So having proof right there that you can have on hand is really important. Backing up, let me just say this. Anyone in your family that has allergies, boy, make sure you note them here. If you weren't able to be there and someone needed to read that your child was allergic to peanuts, that can be a life or death matter. So having those things documented right here could be a lifesaver in that event. Everyone in your family, even mild allergies and prescription allergies, put them all in there. All right, passwords. This is a big one. Let me say this. You're never to have on your computer or phone or any kind of mobile computing device, you don't want to have an Excel spreadsheet called passwords with all of your passwords saved for everything online. That can be very detrimental because hackers know exactly what to look for when they're going into your system and they can get a hold of those files quickly. What you do want to have is handwritten on a tablet each account that you have with the passwords and usernames to get into those accounts, and you want to have a carbon copy of that somewhere where your family can get a hold of it in the event of an emergency. It's a pretty big deal. So make sure you have that as a priority in the week to come to get that put together. And I'm talking to myself right now too because I need to do a few of these things. I am a slacker on a couple of these items. All right. Nextly, the location of keys and even a carbon copy of the actual key to the car, to the shed, to the padlock on the back gate. If you have a carbon copy of that key, or a photocopy is what I'm talking about, with that labeled, it would be very much helpful for family members to go ahead and compare them and be able to figure out which key goes to what in the event that something happened to you. Lastly, and most importantly, and this I'm talking to you whether you are 15 years old or 105, you need to have a will. I'm not promoting any specific one, I'm just saying get yourself something put together. Even if it's just taking a sheet of paper, writing down what's important to you and who should have it and what the stories are behind things, go ahead and make a will out, get it notarized, and let it be something that your family can get to in the event that something happened to you. There's two different kinds of wills. There's a living will that really just mostly has to do with if something happened to you, if you were in a car wreck, do you want them to try to resuscitate you if you were unconscious? Do you want them to not? Do you want your organs to be donated, etc.? If you're still alive, they need to have your instructions written down, and that's a living will. I recommend we all have one of those. But you want a last will and testament as well. Now, I don't know how many years after I've made this video that you might see it, but at the time of us making this, I'm going to go ahead and post down below a link or two where you can get to documents right online on the computer. You should be able to print off a template that you can just fill in with your last will and testament free of charge. All you need to do is fill that out and get it notarized by a professional notary. At least that's how we do it here in the US, and in each country it's slightly different. So follow whatever country rules you have where you live. But make sure you have written down what's important to you and who should be in charge of making those important decisions in the event that something were to happen to you. It's really important to think through these things because we are not guaranteed tomorrow, and the more we can prepare ourselves and our family for future events, it takes the stress out of it, it takes the power of the enemy out of it, it keeps you a little bit more in control, never completely for sure, but a little bit more control of yourself and your family members and your information. So Keep remembering this. You want it to be inconspicuous. Don't make it emblazoned across the front, my family's most important documents. But you do need it to be a separate color, perhaps than the folders around it, or located where everyone in the family would know how to get to it in the event of an emergency. There are other things I have not covered. We'll make sure that we've had a little bit longer list over there where you can download it and check things off for yourself. And not all of these might apply to you, but they may apply to someone you love. So will you take the time to share this video with someone who it might help today? And I say, go out and have a blessed week and make sure that you make it a priority to be a blessing to someone else today. Before you go, I want to share the last 3 verses out of Psalm 92. It says this: "The righteous flourish just like a palm tree, and they grow like a cedar in Lebanon. They are planted in the house of the Lord, and they flourish in the courts of our God. They still bear fruit in old age. They are even full of sap and green, to declare that the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him." Now go spread the word.